Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Enhance Your PR Outreach to Build Lasting Connections. My name is Michelle Eisenberg, and I am a program assistant at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit that is building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. So as you will see in the chat in a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So definitely make sure to check out those links and resources in the chat. And then just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, let us know where you are dialing in from in the chat. We always love to connect. And second, we are going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event. So please make sure to submit your questions for us in that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will try our best to get to all of them. And of course, none of what we do could be possible at the center without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, BMO, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, Microsoft Entrepreneurship for Positive Impact, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We are humbled by their contributions and hope you are grateful too. And so before we get started, we always like to launch just a couple of polls to step back and see how everyone in the room is doing today. This first one is going to ask, how are you feeling? Fearful, anxious, surviving, or optimistic? I'll give it just a few moments for everyone to submit a response here. Thank you, thank you. Awesome. I'm going to end this poll and share these results. All right. Looks like optimism is in the lead. We always love to see that, but we definitely have some feelings of fear, anxiety, and surviving in the audience. Hopefully some of our conversation will help address some of those feelings. So I'm going to stop sharing this poll and launch that second poll. What is keeping you up at night? Finance, sales, marketing, scale, pivot, team, or surviving? And I'll give that just a few moments for people to submit a response one more time. Awesome. We got folks from Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, Georgia, Washington, Florida, California, North Carolina, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Istanbul, New Jersey, Iran, Denver. Welcome, welcome, everyone. So great to have you all here in the audience with us today. So I am going to end this poll, share these results. All right, looks like finance and marketing neck and neck, but finance just pulling ahead and sales right behind. So thank you for sharing, and we will take this into account as we continue to develop new programming for all of you. All right, going to stop sharing that poll. And without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to one of our special guests, Paul Wilson Jr., Global Entrepreneurship and Innovation Thought Leader at the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. Paul, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Michelle, and it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for our partnership with NASDAQ and with Airbnb that helped to make this possible. My name is, as she said, Paul Wilson Jr. I'm Vice President of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs, or Russell Center for short. You can find us online at russellcenter.org. We are the largest center in the world of its kind, dedicated specifically to growing, developing, and scaling Black entrepreneurs. Our focus, think about us kind of like an HBCU of business incubators, where our focus is on, providing education, technical assistance, business advisement, access to capital, training, and education to help businesses grow from as early as concept stage all the way up, again, to scaling. And it's with great partners like NASDAQ and others that we come together, again, to provide unique information, insights, and business strategies to help those businesses grow. And again, you can learn more about us. Again, we're based in Atlanta, Georgia. Again, you can learn more about us at russellcenter.org. So it's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to a great session today.
Love it. Thank you, Paul. Russell Center is doing super, super important work. So please make sure to check them out. We put some links in the chat and we'll continue to do that throughout the session. And now please join me in giving another warm welcome to our two other special guests, Shakira de Messier, Technical Assistance Program Manager at the Russell Center, and James Oliver Jr., co-founder and CEO at Kabila. Shakira, James, it is such a pleasure to have you both with us here today as well. And I'm going to pass it right over to you.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Special thanks to those of you in Georgia, to our stakeholders who may also be on the call. Hello and welcome. It's going to be an exciting time. We're so happy to have you. If you're not familiar with the Russell Center, please check us out, russellcenter.org, especially if you're in Georgia. And even if you're not, check us out.
Oh, this is when I'm supposed to introduce myself. I apologize. She was like, are you going to say something or not? I'm too busy playing around in the chat. Somebody from one of my communities said, hi, James. I was like, oh, how do I respond to this thing? Because I got 10 windows open. So apologies, everybody, for the delay there. Hey, I'm James Oliver Jr. I'm a 3-time founder, host of the number 10 best entrepreneurship podcast. It's voted by FeedSpot. Podcast is the Parents Making Profits podcast. Author of the book, The More You Hustle, The Luckier You Get. You can be a successful parentpreneur. I raised about $1 million for all my startups. I completed the Generator Accelerator with my first startup, WeMontage, which failed. That was back in 2013. I started the Parentpreneur Foundation during COVID to empower Black parentpreneurs so they can leave a legacy for their beautiful Black children. And I recently completed Techstars with my current startup, Kabila, a co-founder matching app. And without the help of publicists, I got WeMontage and Kabila to a lesser extent now on the Today Show 3 times, Good Morning America, Money Magazine, the DIY Network, Martha Stewart's blog, Afrotech. I was on CNBC's version of Shark Tank and more, all again without the help of publicists. And I generated over $100,000 in sales from PR over the years. So that's me.
All right. Well, I guess we can just kind of start out by, discussing at a high level, James, kind of what is the purpose of public relations and how is it distinct from kind of other elements of marketing?
Sure. So in response to this question, I thought it was good to just kind of go back to define what PR is. So I looked up Investopedia. And according to Investopedia, PR is the set of techniques and strategies related to managing how information about an individual or company is disseminated to the public, and especially the media. Its primary goals are to disseminate important company news or events, maintain a brand image, and put a positive spin on negative events to minimize their fallout. PR may occur from press release, news conference, interviews with journalists, social media postings, or other venues. So then I started thinking about, well, what are the types of marketing to your question? And there's so many that I didn't find it instructive to list them all, but I thought it might be helpful to just list just a few, right? So what are some of the types of marketing? If I miss any, feel free to drop them in the chat because there's a bunch that I'm not going to name here, but I know y'all know them, right? So content marketing, everybody knows social media marketing, direct mail, that's something you don't see as often. Pay-per-click ads, like running your ads on Insta or Facebook. TV ads, email marketing. I'm sure many people on this call do a lot of email marketing. Email still convert pretty well. Billboards, and many, many more. If there's some that I didn't name there, please feel free to drop them in the chat. So I will say, look, like the main thing I wanted to get across during this call is if you want to do PR, you can do it on your own without hiring a publicist. You can hire a publicist, but that's going to be really expensive, which doesn't really make sense, especially if you're an early stage company. So also keep in mind that a lot of my perspectives will be from the standpoint of an early stage founder. So I think that a founder is the most compelling person to tell your story to the media, more so than a publicist. I mean, I know some reporters, as I mentioned, I got in a ton of PR, and they actually appreciate it when a founder reaches out to them the right way, more so in some cases than a publicist. So I think your PR outreach strategy can be similar to your sales strategy to the extent that you're doing individual outreach for either one of them, by the way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think sometimes like the two can get conflated in the sense that you get up to have a conversation that's really more for the purposes of PR, and a pitch ends up kind of coming through. So I think those are really important distinctions. So I guess thinking about that early stage entrepreneur, and we have a lot in the audience today, kind of still figuring out like which media channels are going to be best. And obviously it's going to kind of depend on your particular business and your industry. But just thinking about media in general, in what ways can entrepreneurs kind of leverage their respective channels to connect with potential media representatives or community or organization leaders that may be a bridge to kind of build that credibility?
Yeah, so Mario Armstrong is a good friend of mine. He's actually my original co-host of my podcast, which I'll get into a little bit later because I have some episodes I think you're going to want to go back and listen to. They're going to be very helpful for you. But he told me, the easiest way to get PR for your business or your startup or whatever is to insert yourself into an existing conversation. So what does that mean? So I don't know if everybody's talking about like Zoom fatigue during COVID, for example. If you have some unique spin about that conversation, if everybody's writing about that, like tap in and reach out with a different angle. Find somebody who's writing about that and tell them how what you do offers some unique perspective, like a contrarian viewpoint typically does well from a PR standpoint. So that's the main thing for you to keep in mind. And the best way to try and get a PR feature is to focus on your local community. You're not just going to roll up and get on the Today Show, right? In most cases, but you can reach out to your local communities. Like they need content. Your local newspapers, your local podcasters, your local TV stations, especially, and they need content for like the weekends and like in the morning times as well. So, I mean, I did that when I was living in Wisconsin when I started We Montage. I parlayed my way into a regular segment. I had a blog. It was called Trep Life Dad. And I had a segment for Trep Life Dad. I would go on there, Good Morning Wisconsin, and cook. I was cooking and talking about entrepreneurship.
I love it.
And I just pitched them. Why? Because they need content.
Yep.
Right. So you want to be creative and just offer value and pitch your local media. Like I was on locally here on NPR. There's so many, depending on where you live, there's local media outlets. They are thirsty for quality content. So definitely do that. In my experiences, press releases haven't really been particularly valuable for me. I mean, I've done them. I mean, they get expensive, several $100s. Most of the success I had came from individual outreach or direct conversations with the media outlet rep. And direct custom emails have been my most effective tool, which goes back to your last question. And so if you're using email for your sales strategy, I mean, I use email for PR purposes as well. And to me, that's been the best thing. And also sometimes pinging people on social media, on Twitter. But again, if you're going to be doing outreach to those people, like be valuable, be helpful, be a resource.
And like, what I just want to dive into this a little bit deeper because I think sometimes people can worry about like spamming over email. So like, what makes email like such an effective channel for this kind of communication versus like social media where there's so many people kind of interacting and engaging?
How many times a day you check your email?
A lot.
That's it, right? People are still on email, like period. And there's some tips and tricks for email, but you got to have a good subject line, et cetera. And I'll get into. So actually, I wanted to share my screen if I could. I have some examples I wanted to show you all some examples of an email I sent to Mark Cuban. This is back when I still had my blog, to get him to let me feature him on my blog, which he did from a cold email. And also I have an email, excuse me, that I want to share with you that is I sent to the chief marketing officer for HubSpot when I just cold pitched him to get my podcast featured on the HubSpot podcast network. They were spinning up a new program, a creators network for podcasts and paying new podcasters with 0 followers or listens. And I sent a cold email and that worked. So in terms of a couple tips, if you want to send a cold email, to your point, like how do you cut through the clutter? A custom message for each person is ideal. But before that, I want to go back to the first part of your question. The main thing that you need to make sure is that you know your audience and why this would resonate with them or their constituents. And this applies to anybody you're emailing as well, right? Social media outreach, phone calls, nobody's making phone calls, email, social media, etc. You need to know who they are and who they represent and what they do. Otherwise, you're going to get the delete button like in a nanosecond. Because I'm quick to do that. I get so many spammy emails. It's like delete. I mean, I can tell for the title, the subject, half the time I don't even want to read this. I just delete it. Right. So a custom message for each person is ideal. A couple things about the email. It needs to be relevant, right? If somebody's focused on, I don't know, tech startups and you're emailing them about a CPG business that you're starting, they're going to be like, huh? Right? Yeah. Like, why? This delete. Yeah. Be brief. Like brevity is key. Like nobody's going to read a novel length email. I get those all the time. And I'm like, seriously? Why? Delete. Right. And establish credibility right away at the top of your email. So important. You want people to keep reading your email. And a call to action helps if you have one. You could ask for a meeting. You could put a calendar link for a 15-minute follow-up. Make it easy for people to give you a yes. I know one thing that my guy Mario used to like to do. He told a story about when he was working on the set at the Today Show, and Matt Lauer was on the Today Show back in the day. And he has this thing he likes to do. He asked for 3 things: one simple thing, a medium thing, and then a really like dream thing that they could do for you. And so he gave Matt Lauer a letter with those 3 things. And I think Matt saw him in the hall one day and was like, yes, no, yes kind of thing. Wow. Right. So you may want to give people options if you want. Like I don't typically use that approach, but I know Mario does that. Works great for him. So what I would like to do is I want to show you this cold email I sent to Mark Cuban and just highlight some of these examples that I just gave you all here, if that's okay, Michelle.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen here. I've done this a million times, right? Oh, there we go. Share screen. Here we go. So I want to share Chrome. Can you see my screen okay, Michelle?
Yeah, that looks great.
So I want to get out. I'm going to get to Chrome. Hang on a second. Sorry, I always have like a million things going on. Why can't I check that? Click that. Okay, perfect. So, so this is an email that I sent to Mark Cuban. I didn't know him at all. And so look, right away, you can see this subject line. You gotta have a compelling subject. Mark, you're an inspiration to parentpreneurs. A couple of interesting things there. First of all, if you include the person's name in the subject, you have like a 22% increased chance of them opening your email, according to Campaign Monitor. And then you're an inspiration to parentpreneurs. That's like, how many times a day do you think Mark Cuban's getting people emailing him? First of all, he gets probably thousands of emails a day. Nobody's emailing him talking about parentpreneurs. He's like, wait, what? Like, what is this? So now he's intrigued. His name's in it. It says parentpreneurs. So now he's intrigued, right? So right away, boom. Hey, Mark, I'm a Morehouse alum, a tech entrepreneur at WeMontage.com that does this. It's been on Today Show 3 times, GMA, Martha Stewart, and more. Here's an example. Establishing credibility right away. Right? And I included a picture. I don't normally recommend you do that, but in this case, since it was a photo-related product, it made sense to show the picture. And I go, like you, I'm a parent and my twins are 7 years old. Well, I mean, I'm talking to him about some parenting stuff. I know that he cares about his kids. So just trying to move this thing forward here. All right. So I know he cares about his kids because I've seen him talk about them online. So I put my kids. Why? Because they're super stinking cute, right? So I'm like, now I'm trying to tug at the heartstrings a little bit.
Of course.
Right? Of course. That's the cutest picture ever, right?
Absolutely.
They're almost 11. They're the hashtag twin NATO. That's why I call them the twin NATO.
I love
But
it.
they're twins, right? So and I'm like, I'm an advocate for parents. Here's a link to my blog. Here's a link to my book. Again, more credibility. I'm featuring exceptional parentpreneurs to inspire the millions of people around the world to be the best parent entrepreneur they could be. Would you be kind enough to share your insights to help parentpreneurs press through the unique challenges they face? This is especially necessary given the coronavirus. This is right when COVID started. And look, this is my ask. It's only 5 questions. If you agree, I'll send over the questions. I wouldn't send the questions in advance. Like, don't be presumptuous. That's just me. Everybody moves differently. Thank you. With a little PS, I'm also starting a foundation to give grants and resources to parentpreneurs. You can learn more about it here. That's my Parentpreneur Foundation. So what happened with that? Like, he got right back to me, and like, he got back to me like within an hour, and he was like, "Sure, I'm game."
Wow.
Right. And then I was like, well, I can't find any good pictures. Do you have a good picture of you and your son or your kids? He's like, yeah, how's this one? There's a picture of him and his son in a dugout at a baseball game. Right.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's one example of how you can send somebody cold emails. I'm going to show you now another example of an email I sent to the chief marketing officer of HubSpot. So again, here's a subject line: HubSpot Podcast Network plus Black Parentpreneur Podcast. That's what I thought the podcast was going to be called at first, but it's not anymore. So I said, hey, Kip, I hope you're thriving today. I'm the founder. Let me expand this a little bit. Hang on. I'm the founder of the Parentpreneur Foundation, which empowers Black parentpreneurs and is sponsored by Techstars co-founder and prominent VC Brad Farrell with a link to Brad's blog. Remember I said establish credibility right away. If people don't know you, you need to establish credibility. I know some people are like, well, I've never been featured here. I've never been featured there. Like, you have something you can brag about. Like, figure out what that is. You might be the first person to do X, or your product does Y, your customers say this, like anything. Be creative, like find a hook, something that establishes credibility, and put that. So I'm launching the Parentpreneur Podcast and was thrilled to discover the HubSpot Podcast Network. My co-host, again, more credibility. Mario's a 2-time Emmy Award winner, Today Show, and he has a business show at the NASDAQ studios in New York City, right? More credibility. We just recorded a pilot episode with the managing director for Techstar Chicago. Here's a clip of that. And we're considering Podcast Network office for our podcast. We'd love to learn more about the benefits of the HubSpot network. Is there someone on your team you can connect us with so we can see if this would be mutually beneficial? All right, so that was that email. Again, all the elements: short, right up front, establishing credibility. I made an ask: is there someone on your team that can help us, right? That we can talk to. So the result of that was amazing. He connected us with the person that was running the HubSpot Creators Program. They listened to that clip. They were like, hey, do you have a full edited episode? And we're like, holy crap. Like, Mario edited it up, cleaned it up real quick. We sent it to them like on Friday morning, Friday night. We sent it to them Friday night. Saturday, they emailed us. They were like, this is amazing. You guys are dope. We want to invite you to join our first cohort. And by the way, there were only a couple of slots left. And they were paying us. Like, they gave us $5,000 for marketing. They were paying us like $2,000 or $3,000 a month. I can't remember what it was. And we slid in at the back of this program because I sent a cold email. Somebody has a comment. Your Mark Cuban response was most excellent. Did you ever ask why you sent pics of your kids as toddlers when you mentioned them being age 7? Did you have a methodology? No, I didn't. Look, if somebody sees some cute babies like that, they're not overthinking it, right?
Yeah, tugging at the heartstrings.
They're like, these babies cute.
Yep.
So no, he wasn't asking about any of that. He was just like, sure, how's this? So hopefully that's helpful in terms of some examples of how you need to be moving with respect to sending cold emails. If you have any more questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A section, but I'm not going to steal your thunder, Michelle. You tell them how to do that, please.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think something that just comes through with both of those examples is that, like, and we've talked about this, in under the context of other sessions, but you need to kind of believe in yourself for someone else to believe in you and exude that confidence. So what advice do you have for those early stage entrepreneurs kind of, stepping into those conversations with confidence?
I mean, look, I'm so glad you asked that question, because above all else, what I'm trying to do here is it's a mindset shift, right?
Mhm.
It's like I said at the top, you are the best person to
Yeah.
do this. Like, you are a boss. You got to step into your boss shoes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
As simple as that. Yeah.
You got to step into your boss shoes. So somebody wanted to know, how do you go about finding emails to people? I don't know about people but you could Google how to send cold emails. There's tons of resources out there about how to send cold emails. I'm going to drop some links we did 2 episodes with Mario and I about how to get PR without a publicist on the podcast. I think if you listen to those, we talk about that. I'm pretty sure we talked about those 2 emails, but Mario has his own color and experience too. So he gets into, I think you'll find it super helpful. How did I find Mark's email? Oh yeah, that's super easy, man. First of all, Mark's email is notoriously public. I will just Google a person's name and contact info or email. I use getemail.io. That's a free extension where you could scrape people's emails on LinkedIn. You get up to 10 free credits a month. I also use Rocket Reach. You get about 5 to 10 credits a month. I think if they're not on LinkedIn, Rocket Reach is really, really good. But I like LinkedIn because I have an extension. So I'm in LinkedIn. I can just click the button right there and get right to it. But rocketreach.co is really, really good. So somebody said it's personal touch. People in leadership need to be, this thing's jumping around. Need to be reminded that they make a positive impact on the lives of others. If there's a specific example how they make a positive impact, that also works wonders. 100%. Like, stroke their egos, right?
Yep.
100%. 100%. So hopefully that helps, but you just gotta, it's you, man. You are the boss. Like, nobody's going to be able to tell your story like you. So, this is probably, I'm sure you guys have probably done webinars about how to tell your story.
Absolutely.
So you may want to drop the link in that. So, because you got to tell your story. If you're telling a story and nobody cares, that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't respond, what are the next steps? You send them a follow-up. What? You got to follow up.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, but you don't want to be a pest, but send follow-ups. And I was going to get to this a little bit later, but if you send in follow-ups, if you can help it, don't be like following up. Try to add some kind of update.
Sure.
Right, to your follow-up to make it interesting. Not like, hey, did you get my email? Because they probably won't respond to that, right? So the LinkedIn tool I use is getemail.io. Here, I'll drop that in the chat. .io, getemail.io. I'm also dropping in the chat. Rocket Reach. I think it's .co is another one. That's a good tool. Rocket Reach is really good. Cool.
Yeah. So I guess then thinking about the story and like engaging with, whoever you might engage with, you want to make sure it's personalized, but just thinking about some of the different roles that these people might play, whether it's like a community or a government authority or like investor or a lender, like how might entrepreneurs tailor their messaging when approaching some of these, different entrepreneurial stakeholders?
So this is question 5 or question 4 you're asking me here. I'm sorry.
Oh, this 3.
Question 3. So how do you tailor the messaging, you're saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, it needs to be relevant to what they do, right? Whatever you're doing needs to help solve a problem for them or their constituents. Because if you're not doing that, they're not going to, be interested in what you have to say. So you got to find out what they do and make your message relevant for them or their stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. And like, what are some of the key elements of kind of like communication that like make your messaging compelling? And like, what are mistakes that entrepreneurs may want to avoid when, crafting that?
Yeah, well, I touched on it at the very top. You don't have a compelling subject line. the email's too long. Like, don't send anybody like a novel. Like, I see people do that all the time. Nobody's going to read your novel and email. They just ain't. Right? I get those all the time. I don't even read them. I just delete them. Right? Just, establish credibility. Like, why should I keep reading? Like, if you haven't done that in the first couple of sentences, most likely, I'm not going to keep reading. I'm just going to delete. Like, delete. So, and get to the point, right? Like, why are you emailing?
Right.
Like, how is this going to help me? Like, what's in it for me with them, right?
Yeah.
WIIFM, what's in it for me? Get to the point, and make a simple ask. Make it easy for people to say yes. Don't make it hard. Don't ask them, hey, can we jump on a 30-minute Zoom? No, we cannot. Delete. No, we can't. Sorry,
Yeah.
not sorry.
It's true. People's time is valuable, and you want to be able to provide, if you're going to reach out to them, you want to be providing them value that is greater than that. So
100%. Yeah. And people want to be helpful.
Yep.
People want to help. Like, let's be honest, like, make it easy for them to help you.
yeah, no, I love it. That's awesome. So then thinking about the follow-up as we kind of started talking about it, what are just some best practices when it comes to follow-up? You mentioned kind of like not pestering people, but what are just diving into a little bit deeper? What are some other things that entrepreneurs should consider when crafting follow-up messaging?
How often people should follow up? I saw that was a question here in the chat. I mean, it depends. I do up to 4 follow-ups because I don't want to be a pest. I know some people, like my old podcast co-host Mario, he's like, I keep following up until they tell me to stop. I'm like, well, dang.
Yeah, everyone's got there. Yeah.
Some people do that, right? And like, the other thing is, sometimes people don't respond, and then you come back later and they do.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So just because they're not responding doesn't mean it's a no. And if they do say no, it doesn't mean it's a no 3 months from now.
Right.
Right. So, so one of the things I do, always make the message personalized if you can, but when you follow up, include a relevant update. Like I said, don't just be like following up. So you got to find what works for you, but just know that even if it's outside your comfort zone, that doesn't mean it won't be effective for you.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think that just goes back to, like really making sure that you're providing value and
So there's a question in the chat that I want to touch on, because I think this is a really good question here that I think like Jamia asked. When you think about high profile people like Mark, how do you add value to them when they practically have everything and all the resources that they need? But that's a good question, but it's also, they don't have everything that they want or need. Like, what are the causes that Mark's supporting right now? Right? Or anybody, if you see them promoting, diversity or whatever they're promoting, and if somehow what you do is in alignment with that, well, dang it, they probably want to talk to you or learn more. Like, so yeah, Mark's got, $2 more than God probably, but if he's trying to get his other thing popping, if you could help with that, like, he will be interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I feel like thinking about people on more of like a psychographic level, like how do they, what is their lifestyle like? How do they behave? Like everyone is a human being at a certain level. So it's like, like you can relate to them and you can provide value still, even when it seems like they have everything. And that was totally demonstrated with the email that you showed. So, and I maybe you don't have to show it, but I wonder, somebody's kind of asking about like, what was his response like to you? And,
what was his response? I don't know. Let me see if I can find the email. I mean, he was like, sure. I mean, that's my recollection. He was just like, hey, James, sure.
Yeah.
So if you keep talking, ask me a question, I'll see if I can find it. Searching in my email here. Marketing inspiration. Oh, okay. So yeah. Let's see if I can find it.
So
his response was, okay.
There you go.
He was just like, okay.
There you go.
He was like, okay. And then I just emailed him back about, I said, thanks, Mark, you're amazing. Here are the 5 questions. And then he got back to me with his answers. And then I said, I'd like to use a feature photo of you and the kids. If you're okay with that, Do you have one you could share? If not, I'll grab a pic of you offline. Let me know, and I'll send you the link to the article it publishes. So I sent that to him May 15th, 7:58 p.m. May 15th, 9:07 p.m. He goes, "This is a fun one."
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, again, I feel like it really goes back to that, like you have to kind of have that confidence and believe in your initiative or whatever it is that you're kind of putting
But
forward.
also don't take it personally if he doesn't respond. And this is something that I talk about on my podcast a lot. Like, you have to have enough productive activity so that you're not hanging your hat on any one thing, so that if it doesn't happen, you get in your feelings, you're upset about it. For the sake of your mental health, you have to make sure you have enough balls in the air, enough plates spinning, right? Because when one of the balls comes down, you're good, but it's all of the things you do are not going to work. So make sure you have enough productive activity for the sake of your productivity and for the sake of your mental health. You see, I'm wearing my Get You a Therapist t-shirt today. I think today's like International Mental Health Day or something like that. I saw from BetterHelp. But yeah, for the sake of your mental health and well-being, you got to have a lot of activity and don't be dependent on any one thing.
Right. And I think it's also just so important to emphasize a point you made earlier of kind of just like, don't discredit yourself before you've like really received no. Like, just because they're not responding doesn't mean that it's a no forever.
Yeah.
Just continue to provide that value, and eventually it might be a yes. So, but only if you keep believing in yourself. So I love that.
Yeah.
So, I guess thinking about, because especially as an earlier stage entrepreneur, like you may have not received a lot of yeses up until this point. You may have received a lot of no's kind of just throughout different engagements with potential stakeholders. So, how can entrepreneurs kind of like, keep morale up, as kind of like a separate from confidence, like kind of keep the morale up among their team and among their customers, that kind of,
So this is a non-PR question you're asking me here, right?
So I guess
which is fine. I'm game to answer it.
It's more related to kind of like addressing potential concerns or criticisms that may, kind of damage that confidence.
This is a great question, because I think in this country, we're like in a mental health crisis. I do, like ever since COVID. And I think people are really fragile, like myself included. Like, I'm having to be very, very mindful about how I spend my energy and when I decide to do certain things that require more or less capacity, whether or not I actually have the capacity to do those things, all while still being productive. So I think it's, like I said, get you a therapist. So, I mentioned I run the Parentpreneur Foundation. One of the things that we've done in there since COVID, in addition to, giving almost $200,000 in grants, we've paid for mental therapy for like 400 members in our community. So get a therapist, like find somebody you can talk to, exercise. I ride my bike often. If I can't ride my bike because I dropped my kids off that morning because I can't keep my bike in the car, I have my kids in the car, I'll go, there's a beautiful park near here, I'll go for a nice walk in the park. I'll go, do some push-ups, some dips, hang out with the deer in the park for like, 30, 45 minutes, and then get back home and get to work. So you have to find out what works for you, but be kind to yourself. Watch the negative self-talk. You just got to give yourself grace. Grace for others and grace for yourself. If you have children, grace for our children. Like, those are some of the things that I do. And even, depending on which week it is, what I got going on, like, I'm still trying to, get to it. I've been leaning into my faith. That's been helping a lot too. So.
Love that. And then when thinking about like, potential like criticisms of the business itself, and when you're kind of crafting PR messaging in response to that, what tips do you have for early stage entrepreneurs? In terms of just like crafting that messaging that is in response to, a potential criticism, like how might entrepreneurs kind of mistakes they want to avoid? Oop, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Critic's going to critic. I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about the criticism. I mean, if people have some questions or concerns, just as dispassionately as possible, Like, the main thing is like, just don't get in your feelings.
Yeah.
Because when we get in our feelings, we just start doing and saying things that are counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I do is, because, look, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm a Taurus. I'm stubborn. I'm a little bit of a knucklehead. So I know, like, I'm like, right. So I'll just let that sit for a little while.
Yeah, let things
I just let it sit for a minute. You don't have to respond to all the things right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you know yourself, you're like, oh, that triggered me right there. I'm going, keyboard gangster, send. That's not helpful. Don't do that.
Yep. Yeah.
Just let it sit. When you're in a better headspace, like, nobody's expecting you to respond right away in most cases, unless it's your boss, like, hey, I need this right away.
Right.
But otherwise, it's okay. Just let it sit. Like, wait till you're in a good mental, like, don't take a long time to get back to people. Get back to people promptly, but just be mindful of your own capacity and your bandwidth and your mental well-being. Just be mindful of that.
Mm-hmm. And then, so I think something that's really important when it comes to just like this kind of engagement with entrepreneurial stakeholders is, and especially when it comes to messaging with customers, is kind of like learning from them and implementing some kind of, continuous improvement or feedback loop to, help inform further messaging or, even your products or services. So, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are looking to kind of learn from the interactions that they have with other people, like in a PR, like their PR interactions?
How are we doing on time? Because I know how are we doing?
We have a couple minutes until we
so
launch that live Q&A.
So how to learning. So repeat the back part of that question again. I'm sorry.
Just in terms of like how an entrepreneur might implement continuous learning through long-term, through their PR relations when kind of interacting with customers.
Okay. So good. So this is a great question. I think I saw somebody asking in the chat, like, what tools and resources. So I'm going to touch on that here. I think using tools to automate this process can be very helpful, especially if the tools use artificial intelligence or AI. So there's a tool now that I'm actually experimenting with. I know the guy who's created it. So this is back in my early days. It's called justreachout.io. He had it was B2C then, he pivoted to B2B, and now he's back B2C. So I'm actually experimenting with this tool right now. So far, it's really cool. Why is it cool? What do I like about it? It has a directory of thousands of journalists with their contact info. You can search a topic, find out who wrote relevant articles about what you're using, what you're doing. Then you can use this AI tool to create custom email pitches that you can send to them. So if you found an article, somebody, like for me, if somebody's writing about inclusion in tech or diversity in tech, I can select that individual, which I've done, and click use AI, and it will. So I put my own little 4-sentence pitch that I want to communicate.
Right.
And then it will take my pitch and then take the article that the person wrote and create a hook based around what they wrote. This is AI doing this.
Wow.
And weave in my pitch, and I could give it my tone, which is like a friendly tone. That thing is amazing. It's justreachout.io. So I reached out to them. So first of all, they have a 14-day free trial. So look, the main thing I did not say at the top of this thing is, PR can be a distraction. People think chasing the shiny objects is real sexy, but you may not get the hits you want with PR. And even if you do, it's not going to drive any cash flow. Like, PR does not necessarily solve your customer acquisition problems. I told you I got all that PR from my first startup. It still failed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but PR is great from a credibility standpoint. It can help with some sales. So, you can get distracted chasing PR when you should be trying to get your customers to tell 10 of their friends about your business. But if you're going to do it, I think a tool like justreachout.io is great. It's $147 a month. It will save you tons of time. And I reached out to Adam over there, and he said that if you just email adam@justreachout.io and tell him that I sent you, James Oliver, you get a 25% discount. So it'd be just a little bit more than $100 a month. So now you could do PR outreach kind of more at scale and way more efficiently without having to spend a bunch of time searching the internet to see who's writing about what and then trying to find their contact information. That's like a total waste of your time. Like, how do you value your time? Like, if your time's valued $100 an hour, if you spend 10 hours a week chasing PR, which may or may not actually get you the sales you think you want or need, That's $1,000 a week you just set a match to. Right. So you have to be very mindful and value your time. So if you want to get PR, because PR can be great, you can get sales. PR is a great credibility mark. It's great to put on your website, featured on today's show. Customers come to your website. Oh, okay, this is a little bit more trustworthy, right? That's dope. So I would recommend going over to justreachout.io, giving it a try. Try the 14-day trial. Adam sends the follow-up emails all the time, so you can reach out to him. I would try that.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, we are going to launch into that live Q&A at this point. So if you're in the audience and you have a question for James, please make sure to drop it in that Q&A box. We'll try to get to as many as possible. Yeah. So we have.
Hey, Michelle, I apologize. I want to drop in the chat here a link to those 2 podcast episodes I mentioned.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You'll find extremely helpful. Hang on a second. Copy there. So these are 2, part 1 and part 2 about how to get PR without a publicist. And then we interviewed Jason Pfeiffer, who's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. And Jason was amazing. He talked about how to pitch him, right? How to pitch media, what his thoughts are about pitching for PR. Like, go listen to those 3 episodes, and I think you will find, did 3 of them come into chat, or do I just see 2? Part 2, okay, I see all 3. Okay, cool. Somebody said they're having trouble keeping up. Well, drop your questions in the Q&A and let's get to it.
Yeah. So we have somebody kind of wondering about like tips, strategies, kind of just like, how do you make sure that you are connecting with someone who is aligned with your own values as like as an entrepreneur and as a business? Like, how can you kind of like evaluate when you're kind of interacting with investors, community leaders, whoever it may be, media representatives? How, obviously you want to do your research beforehand and just kind of like know at a basic level who this person is, where they come from. But like, how can you kind of ensure that on a deeper level they are, or evaluate?
I mean, you got to do your research, like you just said. You go to the website and there's an about section.
Sure.
Read the about section. You can also, a lot of websites have like a press release, a press section. Like, see what's going on in the press section. A lot of times that's a cheat code. That right there will tell you if they're issuing press releases, et cetera. That will tell you what they're hot on right now.
Sure.
So remember I said the easiest way to get PR is to insert yourself into an existing conversation. If they're talking about AI and you have some kind of unique twist on AI to solve some problem that's relevant to them, boom, that's your entree.
Here you go. Love it. So we have somebody asking, don't national TV shows have gatekeepers for content acquisitions? Do you know anything about this in terms of just like?
Yeah, they do. You can define who the producer is.
Okay.
Find out who the producer is for the show. And again, like, start with, I suggested start with your local TV shows. You could go national, but those people are getting like thousands of pitches probably. I'm not saying to not do it. Every time I was able to get on one of those national platforms, it was there's no one size fit all, you know what I'm saying, for that. But you can certainly pitch, you can pitch people who are contributors on those platforms. A lot of times those things are pay to play, which is super annoying. I never paid to do any of those big name things I told you. I did that all organically on my own, but find out who the producer is on the show. I mean, I've done so many things like that locally. Just, be a resource, a couple of things that we didn't even get to, like some tips in terms of, I wrote them down here. See if I can find, I wanted to give you some tips about how to connect with these folks. Oh, how to connect with media outlets, etc. So one hack, if you want to connect with a reporter, invite them to in-person events. They love in-person events, right? They want to feel cool. They want to be one of the cool kids too. Be a resource for them. Like, I did this for the Wall Street Journal family and tech columnist when I started my foundation. She actually ended up featuring or using some of the people in my foundation community as a resource. And I stay in touch with her, and I just interviewed her for the episode of my podcast we're about to drop, which is about the toxicity of social media and its impact on our children. And like, this is, again, Wall Street Journal. Like, I email her, she gets back to me because I'm like, how can I be a resource? Let me connect you. I mean, I just was a resource. I stayed in touch with the woman here in Atlanta when I first moved here Used to be a show called Atlanta Tech Edge. I was on that. I stayed in touch with her. I'm like, I got all these parents who are entrepreneurs in my community. Like, here's a bunch of people. If you ever need some people for content, here's a list. And just last week, I was on her show, ATL and Co. Right? Why? Because I'm a resource. I maintain a relationship with her, and we're just launching these founder Friday, these Tech Tuesday founder happy hours here in Atlanta, and we're able to go on and talk about that. And when I got done, we were there. I was like, hey, what happened to Atlanta Tech Edge? Y'all need to bring that back. Everybody in the studio was like, yeah, we do. So I emailed her back, and I'm like, yeah, when you do, you should have me as your co-host. And these are the 3 reasons why I'll be a dope co-host. And she was like, you know what? You're right. Stand by.
There you go. Love it. And so we have another question here. You've landed a live PR feature. How do you properly prepare to make the most of the exposure in the moment and afterwards?
You gotta know your story, right? You gotta know who their audience is. Why will this resonate with their audience? Like, you have to give, right? It can't just be just about you, because I hate to say this way, but nobody cares about you like that. You know what I mean? Like, nobody cares about your thing as much as you do, ever, they just won't, unfortunately. So you have to, what kind of value can I bring and deliver for them? And this is counterintuitive. I can't remember who said this, but always give your best stuff away for free.
Mm.
Give it away for free. So I'm dropping in the chat here. This is an interview I did with Samantha Duriska, who is a writer for Afrotech. I did a conversation with her about how to pitch her and how to get PR for a reporter of her ilk. And here's another one. This is Dominic Midori Davis. Like, Dominic is killing it. Dom's killing it right now. She works for TechCrunch. And go watch those. They talk about how to pitch them, what to do, what not to do. Go watch them. That's on LinkedIn. It's free. Go watch it.
Perfect. And we have another entrepreneur here asking, it seems like maintaining relationships with your media contacts is pretty important. How much time, energy should you invest in maintaining these relationship, and what makes these efforts successful?
It just depends on how hard you want to go in the paint on this. So you could ask them if it's okay, if you so I have an investor update list. Once a month, I send an update out to my investors. Ask them if you could keep them on an update list so they can stay abreast of what you're doing. Like, throw their names in MailChimp once a month. Just put a relevant update about what's going on with you in there. Boom. That's the way for you to do that at scale, right? If you want to put them on a list on Twitter or X or whatever that's called now, you can follow up with their tweets. Just scan that, once or twice a day. If you see something interesting, comment, like, share, boom. That's the way to stay engaged with people. Like, these are humans. Like, just be human.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Awesome. And so we are just about there. If you had one key takeaway, piece of wisdom, or just a mantra that you carry with yourself, that you wanted to leave with the audience, could be, related to PR or otherwise, what would that be?
So, you got this. You can do this. Like, nobody's going to be able to do this PR thing for you better than you, right? Automate it. Check out justreachout.io if you want to spend time on that. Automate it so you're not burning up a bunch of your time, because PR does not necessarily equal cash flow.
Yeah.
So you need to be mindful of that. And finally, you got this.
Love it. James, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a great conversation. A lot of really important points shared here. And on behalf of the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and everyone here today, we're just so thankful that you joined us.
Yeah. And if you're looking for a co-founder or tech entrepreneur, you can check out joinkabila.com. Go to our co-founder matching app, and you can download the app and find a co-founder. And if you're a Black parent entrepreneur, you can check out my Parentpreneur Foundation. Go to parentpreneurfoundation.org and join our community.
Perfect. We'll drop those in the chat as well. And to our audience, we would love for you to join us again for upcoming webinars, which you can view using that upcoming events link that's going to be posted in the chat. And thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you back online with us soon.